Hey you guys, it's Peter, and I don't know what to do without saying my intro, but I'm not saying my intro for this video today because this is a little bit of a different video over here. Well, it's a lot of a different video over here. So today's video is going to be exclusively about addiction and sobriety. And the reason that I am making this video today is because today, December 17th, is my sobriety birth date. Today I am celebrating 26 years of continuous sobriety. I'm extremely grateful for my sobriety. I'm extremely grateful for my life. And I know that many of you in the comment section below, like many of you have done on Twitter and Instagram and in direct messages and in emails and on and on and on. It's just been so wonderful today, have congratulated me and wished me a happy birthday for my sobriety, and I want to say thank you for that. But I don't say it on here because of the pats on the back or the congratulations and all of that. The reason that I have purposely decided to share my story since I started on YouTube was because I wanted people to know out there, people that are still suffering, people whose friends and families are still suffering. I wanted people to know that as addicts and alcoholics, we do recover. And I am just one example of what recovery looks like. I don't claim to be the poster child, the gatekeeper for anything to do with recovery. For example, I choose to work a 12-step program. There are many, many ways to get sober. You do not have to work a 12-step program to get sober. That is what I have chosen for my life. Today I'm going to do a Q&A because I wanted to do something kind of different instead of just getting on here and, you know, telling my story, which I've done a million times, which I'm going to do here in just a little bit. But I wanted to answer some of your questions and see what your questions were. And I'm going to try to pick questions that kind of apply to my own personal experience. So when people are asking me about my personal experience, because that's really all I have to share is my experience, strength, and hope. I you know, don't want to get into, like, a lot of people have asked me, like, well, what should I do in this situation or what should I do in that situation? And everybody's situation is so completely different. But I do want to be an example of somebody that you can see on a regular basis that has gotten sober, okay, was at the very bottom of the barrel. People ask me a lot. They say, do you think that you hit your bottom? No, I don't believe that I hit my bottom. I truly believe that my bottom is death. If I continue to use, I will die from the disease of addiction, and I do believe that it's a disease, and we don't have to fight about that. I believe it, you don't have to. As long as we're both, like, trying to save lives and, you know, get people to get sober today so that they can have miraculous, amazing lives as well. Everything that I have in my life today, from making YouTube videos to the house that I live in, to my friends, to my husband, to my dogs, everything that I have in my life today, I have as a result of my sobriety. And people don't sometimes understand when I say that what I mean necessarily. And just let me explain to you why I say that. So we call our sobriety birthdays, and then, like, our birthday, we call our belly button birthday. So on my belly button birthday last year, I went to lunch with my dad, and my dad and I got talking about sobriety and recovery and, you know, on and on and on. And I said to him, I said, you know, do you ever think back to what it was like on that day or those days back then when I got sober? And he said, oh yeah, I think about it a lot. And I said, what do you think would have happened to me had I kept on using? And without missing a beat, my dad looked at me and he said, you would be dead. And I have to say, you know, at that point, 24 years sober, I was kind of like taken aback at my dad's quickness with that. But see, as addicts and alcoholics, we don't really realize how much we are affecting the people around us. We don't really realize, because of our selfishness and self-centeredness from our disease of addiction, we don't really realize what hell we're putting other people through. And I put everybody in my life around me in total hell, through total hell. They were afraid all the time for my life, to the point of where they had to kind of exit my life, many of them, because to care meant to be constantly afraid of what was going to happen to me. Just to give some kind of idea at the very end of what I was using, because a lot of people ask that, and I have to tell you, like, it was not my pick to go into. I wasn't like, okay, I'm ready for treatment, let's go in to get treatment and get sober. That was not my story. My story was that I had a car accident, and by myself. Thankfully, I didn't hit anybody or hurt anybody, and my dad came out with my stepmother in the middle of the night, and my dad looked at me and he said, do you want to go to treatment or do you want to go to jail? And I said, treatment, because I'm not stupid, and I had been to jail before. So I do have a legal history as a result of my addiction, and so I went to treatment. I woke up the next day in treatment, and I actually talked a lot about this on my vlog today. I woke up the next day in treatment kind of like, where am I? I was a blackout drinker. I used many, many substances. I woke up the next day in treatment kind of like, where am I? How the hell did I get here? And how the hell do I get out of here? And I wanted out with quickness. Now I'm a believer in a higher power. I talk about God moments and things like that. I walked out of my room on the detox unit of the treatment facility that I was in into the face of my childhood neighbor that I did not even know worked in this facility that I had come to. And I said to her, like, I looked at her and I was so embarrassed and so ashamed. And I said, so embarrassed and so ashamed. And I said, I gotta get out of here. Like, I don't need to be here. And she put her hand over mine and she said, Peter, your vitals are really bad. Like, you were almost dead. I blew a .37 when I came in. I hadn't drank for hours. So I have no idea what my blood alcohol level would have been at the point that I came in, or before that when I was drinking. And I don't know what it was about that moment. If it was because I trusted her because she was my childhood neighbor that when I was growing up, that I didn't even know she worked in this facility. I ended up getting to work next to her for many, many years. And it just, things kind of just lined up in a way that, to me, when I look back on it, was like a spiritual experience. I don't even know how else to explain it other than that. In a weird kind of way. I have so many stories leading up to that where it's like, I really should not be here, you know? And I had no desire to be there. I was very resistant. I fought at first. I did not want to be in treatment. My father called everybody in my life and told them not to take any calls from me because I would just beg them to come and get me, which I would have. And he worked very, very closely with the doctor who is my addictionologist. And I think it was because of all of these people that were willing to set boundaries and limits for me in my life at that point that I am here today. I don't believe that if it wasn't for all of those people combined with my counselor and everybody else that worked in the facility and the people that were telling my dad what to do and on and on and on, I do not believe that I would be here today. I just don't. And I am a believer that we have to set limits and boundaries for people that we love that are addicts and alcoholics. I think that that is our love language if we love them. And I know that that's one of the hardest things to do. At the end of my use, I was drinking about a 1.5 fifths of Jack Daniels a day, up to 12 beers to 24 beers a day. I loved drinking beer. I would really drink anything that anybody gave me. I also drank like 3 to 4 40s a day. I loved malt liquor. I was smoking marijuana all day long. People ask me a lot, do I think that marijuana this is a dangerous question when it comes into play with addiction. People ask me if I believe that marijuana is a gateway drug. I am a believer that whatever you use first can be a gateway drug if you have a genetic predisposition for addiction. So whatever you pick up first, which for me was alcohol, whatever you pick up first is going to be a gateway if you have, I believe in a predisposition for addiction. I believe I was born an alcoholic and an addict. As many of you know, my mother got sober 6 months after I did, and she identified as an alcoholic. So I believe that genetically I got it from her. So, you know, I think that's how I feel about the whole marijuana thing. I have to tell you, and if you watch my vlog, you already know this, I'm a firm believer in the decriminalization of marijuana. Just for example, there are people that we're having people that are being institutionalized and jailed on failed drug screens for marijuana when they do not have true addiction issues. And we're just seeing children in and out of social services and foster care and things like that as a result of this. And that makes me very, very sad. I don't think that we're solving any problems because of that. This is just my personal opinion. And so I do believe that there are people that can recreationally use marijuana the same way that people recreationally use alcohol. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. And I say unfortunately because I love to smoke weed. I also love to drink alcohol. I love to use all kinds of substances. They just stopped working for me. I couldn't do it in a way that I could control it. If I was to smoke weed, I smoked weed all day long. So when people ask me, do you think that you can be addicted to smoking marijuana? I was addicted to smoking marijuana. So yes, I do believe that. But that was because of my experience. I would smoke it until I couldn't get high anymore. I just loved every bit of it. You know, and I smoked a lot, and I drank a lot, and I would get up, and I also took a lot of pills, and I smoked crack cocaine at the end, the last few months, and I was using cocaine the last year and a half, 2 years, and there really wasn't anything that I wouldn't have used. You know, people ask me a lot. They say, you know, you kind of go on these rampages about opioid addiction. And the reason that I do is because today in 2020, almost 2021, we are losing somebody every 9 minutes due to opioid overdoses in our country, okay? The only reason that I am not sitting here as a recovering, well, hopefully a recovering heroin addict is because nobody ever introduced that to me. Had they introduced heroin to me, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would have used it. I know that as an addict, I would have picked it up. I always used to say to myself and to everybody around me, I will never use heroin, but I know, because this is what happened. I started with alcohol and I said, I'll never do this. And then I did that. And then I said I would never use LSD. And then I used LSD. And then I said I would never eat pills. And I ate pills. And it just was, I lowered it and lowered it and lowered it. Had somebody introduced me to heroin, I would have used heroin. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. The only reason anything out there that I didn't use was only because I wasn't introduced to it, you know? But for the grace of God, because I can tell you right now, the way that I used as a heroin addict, I would be dead today, and I know that. Which is why every single day I pray for the still suffering addict and alcoholic out there, because there are so many people that are being affected by heroin and opioid addiction in our country. And it's the one disease that we don't want to talk about, because we want to fight over whether or not it's a disease, and we want to fight, even though the American Medical Association says it's a disease, and we want to fight over, you know, like the shame that goes along with addiction. We need to start talking about it. We need to start sharing our stories. We need to start not being so afraid to talk to one another about family members and friends that are going through this, because we're losing lives as a result of that. And I don't want to lose one more person. I've lost literally hundreds of people in my life to addiction. Hundreds, if not thousands at this point, you know? And people are like, how is that possible? I've been sober for 26 years, you guys. There's 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5 people a month that I know that pass away from addiction. Do the math. You know, it's tragic, it's sad, and it's the reality of what is going on out there right now in our world, and we like to turn a blind eye to it because we want to talk about things that are pretty and things that are nice. You know, we want to get into, you know, arguments about things that aren't going to matter if this person isn't here tomorrow, you know? And that's why I have chosen to continue to talk about this on my channel, and out of hopefully inspiring other people to do the same thing. And that's a little bit of my story. It was not my first time to treatment. I had gone to treatment many times. I had a legal history. It just was ugly. And maybe someday if you guys want to know my whole story, I've told it before on this channel, and I can tell it again. I'm more than willing to do that. But I wanted to answer some questions that you guys had at 13 minutes and 8 seconds now on this video. As you can see, I'm very, very passionate about recovery. It's probably the #1 thing in my life that I am the most passionate about. And when you see somebody get sober, okay, however they do it, however they put the drug or the alcohol down, and you get to watch them over time, okay, become alive again. You know, I talked in my vlog the other night about, you know, I would get up and I would make coffee in a coffee maker and clean my kitchen and make my bed and take a shower. And those don't seem like big things, but to me they were. And I felt like a human being again. And I would go to a meeting and somebody would say, pull a chair out, and they would say, Peter, it's good to see you again. And I didn't know how they remembered my name, and they would allow me to sit next to them. And I didn't stink anymore, and they weren't afraid, because I did. I stank. I stank horribly. People didn't want me around them, and, you know, and they wanted me to sit next to them, and they would get me a cup of coffee, and they would give me their number, and they wanted me to call them, and it made me feel human again. It made me feel like a real person. It made me feel like I mattered and that I was alive. And that was really important. That was really, really important. I don't for one second want anybody to think that when I first got sober, I like dove into this thing. Like, I'm here and I'm going to take this thing by storm, because that wasn't me. And I did a lot of things. I was resistant to a lot of things in early sobriety, and I questioned a lot. But I showed up. And I didn't pick up, and every day that I didn't pick up, I had a daily reprieve from the disease of addiction and from dying. And I felt alive slowly over time. I felt like a human being again. You take somebody that hasn't felt like a human being in a very, very long time, and you start making them feel like they matter again, and that they're valuable and that they're important. And that's a huge gift to give somebody. Just to have somebody walk through a room and you remember their name, that is a big deal. To reach out your hand and not be afraid to touch them is a big deal. And I think that we kind of forget that today, you know, that there are people out there that are dying, not just from addiction, but because they don't have anybody in their lives and they're lonely and they're sad and they feel like nobody cares about them and they don't matter, and that's not true. And we've got to be smiling to people, we've got to be reaching out to people and saying you matter and you're important. And everybody out there is important and everybody out there matters. So, okay, now I wanted to get into some of these questions. See, I could go on and on and on. The greatest gift I was ever given was given the gift of sobriety, period, hands down. You know, and it I think kind of trumps being over my gift of being alive, because if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't even have my life today. Like, that's profound on a level that I think about every single day that I get up. Okay, so I wanted to answer some of these questions. Let's go in here. I just randomly screenshot these questions. Let's see. What was the moment you knew you had to stop? So I knew I had to stop years before I did. I knew it was a problem. I talked about this in my vlog today. I was a blackout drinker, which means that you continue to drink, you continue to function, but your body forgets. So I would wake up every single day not knowing what had happened the night before, to the point where people would say to me, do you know what you did? And I didn't even want to know. I was like, don't tell me. It was bad. Like, I mean, it was really, really bad. And, you know, for years before, people were like, you're out of control, it's bad. And I'd be like, no. They would say, you're drinking or you're using is a problem. And I'd say, it's a problem for you. It's not a problem for me. And I knew it was really bad. I just didn't really want to admit it. And quite frankly, I was addicted to desperation too. I was addicted to the desperation of the life that went along with it. And I put myself in some very, very scary situations, okay? I've had guns in my mouth before. I mean, in all just frank honesty, I had a dealer that I went to that he thought it was funny for me to come into his house and sit around with his friends, and he would put a gun in my mouth, a loaded gun, cocked, okay? And have me give head to this gun. And for some reason, in my mind, I thought that that was okay. I thought that that was normal, that people would do that just to get drugs, okay? Like, I thought that was normal. I put myself in situations and did things that I would never do to my worst enemy today. So we want to talk about self-love and self-esteem and self-concept. I literally had none. I lived for the high. I did not care if I lived or died, honestly. And I didn't feel that I was somebody that wanted to take my life. If you asked me, I would have said no. And when I went into treatment, my counselor said to me, she goes, so you've been slowly trying to kill yourself? And I said, no, not at all. And she goes, well, what, I mean, she was like, well, what do you call all this? And I was like, oh my God, she's right. Like, I really was. I did not care. It was bad. I had no idea how I got home. I had no idea, like, I woke up in places next to people that I was like, who the hell is this? I don't know. How did I get here? Way past, we're not talking about the walk of shame. We're talking about dangerous environments and situations with people that I had no idea with, in cities that I didn't even know. I was waking up in places that were 200 miles away thinking, how the hell did I get here overnight? Having no idea where I was. Out in the middle of farm towns sometimes, you know, in a country house where I could have been dead and nobody would have known, you know? So yeah, it was bad. What happened to me was I got into treatment. I knew, so people ask me a lot what my bottom was to get sober. I truly believe that my bottom was my fear of being homeless, because at that point, my dad was so angry, which I think is probably the healthiest place he needed to be at that time. He was so angry, and he said to me, I don't care if you follow through with this or not. I don't care if you walk out of treatment. You do what you want. I'm done taking care of you. I'm done helping you, because the reality was I was a spoiled kid that my dad had taken care of me, and that's the truth. And I just need to tell it, because for somebody out there that might relate to that, stop with that if you're doing that to your kid, okay? Stop. My dad's fear was that I was going to end up prostituting or stealing from somebody. And the week before, he had said that to my stepmom, and my stepmom said, how do you know he's not doing that already? So my dad was so done with me at that point. He's like, I don't care. You can walk out of treatment. You can walk out. You don't have to do any of this kind of stuff, but I'm done with you. And I think that my fear was I had no clue how to take care of myself. Hell, the only job that I had was a drug dealer, and I wasn't even good at that. You know, I was using my home phone. To any of you people out there that have been or want to admit to using a dealer ever in your life, they don't use their home phones. I did, okay? That's what kind of, I was not a good drug dealer, okay? So, you know, but for the grace of God, I don't know how I avoided some of that kind of stuff. But anyway, so I just was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. I was this kid that wanted to act real bad on the outside, you know, put a drink in me, you know, put a Vicodin in me, you know, let me smoke some weed, and I was the meanest bastard out there. But sober, without anything in me, I was a scared little kid. I was terrified of the world around me. And, you know, I knew that. And I knew I had no idea how to take care of myself whatsoever. And so I just stayed because I didn't know I didn't have anywhere else to go, you know? And I learned to shut my mouth. Because as soon as I opened my mouth, somebody told me I was being stupid in treatment. Somebody told me I was being wrong. They told me, I thought, F you people, I'm going to shut my mouth. By the third week, I started listening, and people were telling stories, and I was like, wow, they're telling my story. You know, I relate to this. And I'd shut my mouth long enough to open my ears and listen to what people were saying, and what I realized was they were telling my story. And I belonged there, and I had earned my seat, see? I had believed that this was everybody else's problem. What I realized, having just a small moment of clarity, was this was my life, okay? And I needed to take some ownership over my life. And then I got scared about getting out of treatment, you know? So that's how I knew, like, was when I had kind of a moment. And in all honesty, it wasn't until 6 months later, when I was coming out of a meeting after I celebrated my 6-month sobriety birthday, and I stood in the parking lot, and I was like, you have not done anything for 6 months consistently in your life, let alone stay sober. And that was really the beginning of it for me. It really wasn't at the beginning. It was about 6 months sober. I was like, wow, like you've done this thing. Like now, and I made a deal with God that moment. I was like, God, if I'm going to stay sober, I ain't staying sober to be sitting in these effing meetings for the next 25 years of my life. And I still do. And I still do, too. And I love them, every minute of it. I love them, okay? I'm addicted to meetings. And, but no, like I said, I'm not sitting in these meetings, these stupid meetings with a bunch of old people for the rest of my life, who are now some of the dearest people to me that I've ever met in my entire life. But I said, God, I'm not sitting in these meetings for the rest of my life. If I'm going to get sober, I'm going to do something with my life. I'm going to use it as a medium to do something with my life and have a life. And I do today. I have relationships that really matter to me. I get to get up every single day and make videos, which is something that I love to do, you know. I've repaired the relationships of the past. I know this doesn't sound like a lot, but I got to be present when my mom was passing away. I got to be there. I wouldn't have been there for her. You know, I got to be there when my aunt and my uncle were passing away. I got to be part of that whole process and be there for my cousin that needed me, you know. I got to get married. I got to write a book. I got to have some of the, you know, the best, they're walking around right now, dogs that a person's ever had. You know, my dog Pee-Pee that passed away last year, I would never have met Pee-Pee had I not gotten sober. So everything that I have is a result of that today, and I'm just so thankful that I was willing to listen to this. All somebody wanted me to do was shut my mouth long enough to listen, to realize that maybe I should care enough about my own damn life to do something about it, you know? Instead of just muting myself and giving my life away to something that didn't matter. So that was a good question. Thank you. That went on for 20 minutes. Let's see. Okay. Are there days when you miss alcohol and drugs or crave it at all? I got a lot of these questions. So I wouldn't say that there are days, like, okay, so when I play the tape through my head, like, I am not somebody, and I did for a while, I truly believe that the desire had been lifted from me. But if I'm being real honest about it, and my friend and I are walking through, you know, a Walmart, and I see all this new alcohol that I've never tried before, or whatever, the alcoholic in me is like a kid in a candy store, right? Like, that's why they say if you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're gonna get your hair cut. Because if I hang around that aisle long enough at Walmart, I'm gonna convince myself that it's been 26 years and maybe I can have a beer. You know what I mean? And then I can tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to try all this stuff that I have never tried before, because there's 9 million things out there, Xanax being one of them, that I have never had in my life that I can tell you right now. And I know this for a fact too. I probably would never end up back in recovery again, because I would probably just say, F it, just kill yourself. Like, I really truly do believe that. Like, I really do, you know? Isn't it so sad that I'm sitting here telling this and I'm thinking to myself that YouTube is probably going to restrict this video because I just said that on here? But that's the truth, you know? I don't know if maybe they don't want to hear it or if somebody doesn't want to hear it, but that's the truth of what addicts and alcoholics live through, you know? So yeah, I still do. I still think about it all the time. You know, we go on vacation and I think a pina colada might not taste nice, you know? Or I think to myself, like a cold beer. I love to drink beer. It might be nice. Hell, what's this IPA business, you know? Like that all came out since I got sober. We didn't have that back in the day, but as IPA as you got was Red Stripe, and I loved that stuff, you know? But mostly, I drank Miller Genuine Draft and Natural Light, because that's about all the money I had, you know? So yeah, I think about it. I think this whole situation with cannabis shops and marijuana being legalized everywhere has just screwed the minds of a lot of addicts and alcoholics out there. I don't know, maybe, but for me it has, okay? Because I think I might like to go into one of those cannabis shops and see about, I don't know, Butterfinger candy bars that'll get you high and gummy bears and all this kind of stuff. But see, I have no business in one of those places. My dogs started going crazy because they see me moving over in the rear view mirror. See, they're going crazy. Tucker, no. But anyway, but see, I think it might be real fun to go into one of those stores, like I was saying, you know, and have me I don't know, something that I don't need to be having, right? And that's how my mind works at 26 years, okay? That I think that maybe, like this is one of the things I think about a lot. Well, hell, you got sober so early. Maybe you're not really an addict or an alcoholic. But here's how I feel about that today, okay? Let's say if I went out there and I was able to have a glass of wine, or I was able to have a beer, right? Or smoke a blunt, or something like that. I've never even smoked a blunt. Those things came out after I got sober, okay? So let's just say if I could do all that, right? Let's say if I could. How would that change my life so greatly that I need to go do that, right? Like, would my life be so amazing and so wonderful because I could have a glass of wine at a restaurant or a beer on a beach? I mean, would my life become so amazing as a result of that? What's the other side of that, the flip side, right? What if I can't handle it? What if I go back out there and I have a beer, or I have a drink, or I have a blunt, or whatever, right? And a glass of wine, or whatever, and all of a sudden, the next thing I know, 2-3 days later, because I've had this, okay? I had a very dear friend of mine, I've had several very dear friends of mine, with double-digit years of sobriety, okay? That means 10, 20 on, okay? That went back out there and started using again. Breaks my heart. You know, so I know that I'm capable of that. I know that it's that I could end up out there again. And I don't know. I could end up dead. So no, it's not real important to me to have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever at the expense of knowing I might lose this amazing life that I have been given. It's too precious to me. People are fighting for their lives every single day, okay? I'm not going to give away what was so graciously given to me. I'm just not, you know, which is why I try to get on videos and tell my stories and slip it in there and stand up for people that are sober and whatever. And it's why I got so bent out of shape recently when I said in a video, yeah, call me a junkie all you want. I don't really care. Those words don't do anything to me. They really don't, okay? I've been called every word in the world that you can imagine, okay? I've been called a junkie. I've been called a crackhead. I've been called crack Mary sitting on. I've been called everything that you can be called, okay? And I have probably been one of all of those things at one time or another. But like I said, if you're going to call me those things, call me in recovery at the end, okay? Not because it makes a whole lot of difference between myself and my higher power, but because you need to be educated on that if you're going to call somebody that, okay? It's rude and it's disrespectful, first of all. Number two, what you're saying is you don't really care if people are dying from the disease of addiction, you know? Now, I tried to educate somebody about that recently, and you know what they said to me? They said they didn't care, okay? Well, I think that's a really pretty sad state that you get to when you don't care if you're calling somebody such horrible names, basically wishing death on them, okay? Because if you're looking at somebody that's a junkie and you're calling them a junkie, what you're saying to them is, I wish death on you, okay? Because an active junkie is a junkie that could possibly be dead very, very soon, like in the next 9 minutes. That I don't understand, okay, why we would at any point in this world think that that's okay. I don't know why we think that's funny. I don't know why we think that's okay. I don't know why we allow it. People that call me those names today in my life, they're out of my life, okay? You want to know a real quick way to get out of my life? call me something like that in a way that you think is funny, okay? Now, and I'll tell you, it's my friends and I in sobriety, we don't even joke about that like with each other, okay? Like, you know, I mean, we might say something like, oh, we're a bunch of drunks or something like that, but I would never in a million years sit and allow one of my sober friends to look at me and say, you effing junkie. I'd say, excuse me, I'm going to pull over now and you can get out of the car, okay? Why we would ever allow somebody to weaponize those words, okay, against somebody, especially a sober person, okay, that we should instead, you call them everything you want to call them in the entire world, okay? Why are we calling people names anyway? See how heated I get about this? Because you really are ignorant enough to be knowing that you're wishing death on somebody if you call somebody that, okay? Like, that's so sad to me. I just don't understand that. I have no time for that whatsoever. None whatsoever. So anyway, y'all watch that video where I went off about that? Okay, and I said those words don't get me, but they don't get me fired up about me, okay? Like, let me say this, because this is, I think, important. I don't get fired up when somebody calls me that name, okay? And to be honest with you, I don't even really care if they call me a junkie in recovery. I said that in my last video, and I'm saying it in this video, but I don't really care. They can call me a junkie all day long. They can call me a drunk. They can call me a wino. They can call me a pillhead. They can call me a crackhead. They can call me anything they want. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me today. I don't stay sober for anybody else but myself. True story, okay? I don't stay sober for my dad. I don't stay sober for my husband. I don't stay sober for my family. I don't stay sober for my friends, okay? I stay sober for myself. And that's important, okay? But the reason I get so heated about this name calling and weaponizing of the word junkie and the word crackhead and all those kinds of things is because, okay, when I see other people that are negatively affected by that, I don't know what that word might do to somebody else. And when I was watching this on social media going down, there were a lot of people that were negatively affected by that word. See, I don't know how that word was used against them. I don't know the condition of their life today, right? And neither does anybody else when they're using that word. That's a word that might send somebody right over the edge. Why would you ever chance that with somebody? You know, say to somebody, I don't agree with your opinion. Say to somebody, you're wrong. Say to somebody, you know, and grown folk calling each other these names, wanting to hurt each other with a disease that will kill you. No, that's sad to me. That's sad to me, you know. Anyway, let's go on to another question. Woo, Peter went off for a second there, didn't he? Okay, what helps you stay sober the most? Prayer or accountability? Oh, Lord. Damn. Well, look at my hair. That's a question, isn't it? That's, oh my God. I don't know, you know, like, that's a great question. I think both. I mean, accountability is such a huge part of sobriety. I mean, it's part of my inventory. It's part of, you know, I learned to pray before I learned to take accountability in recovery. You know, when I first got sober, I didn't even know if I believed in a higher power. I can tell you right now, if I had gotten sober and I came into a 12-step program and they had told me you have to believe in this or that God, I would have said I'm out. So, you know, it's important for people to know that 12-step programs don't tell you that you have to believe in any certain God. You get to make up that concept. And, you know, I was taught just to get down on my knees and say thank you at the end of the day and say help in the morning. And that was how I learned to pray. And so, I don't know, maybe I think prayer has probably been more important to me. You know, prayer's gotten me through a hell of a lot in my life. It really has. And, you know, there have been many times that I haven't even believed in prayer. And I did it anyway. And miracles happened, you know. I'll tell you one of the neatest miracles ever was, since I went off on this whole thing, I'll say something positive, was when I posted this thing on the Instagram story for the questions. I literally got more questions than I've ever received before in doing a Q&A, and I might do a part 2 tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. It's important to me. But I got probably 1,000 questions. I've never gotten that many questions in doing a Q&A before, you know? And there were so many comments in there of people saying, I just celebrated 6 months sober, or I just celebrated 4 years sober, I just celebrated 18 years sober, or 18 months sober, or 12 days sober, or 2 days sober, or that my mom just celebrated this, or whatever. And that's amazing, and you all are miracles out there. Every single one of you is a living miracle out there, and don't ever forget that, you know? And I can remember when somebody said that to me. They said, you're a miracle. And I was like, what? And that reference to me was, you know, back in the day, I could get a ticket to a Grateful Dead concert. That's how we got him, was holding up her finger. That was called a miracle. You're hoping for a miracle, you know? And I can remember when somebody called me a miracle. I thought to myself, me? Me? Not me. I'm not a miracle. I'm a mistake. I'm a mistake. But today I know that's not true. Today I know I'm a person of character. And today I know I'm a miracle. And so are you. All right. Let's just answer a couple more. Let's see. Tucker is wanting so much attention right now. Okay. Somebody said, what did you do when the pink cloud dissipated? How did you find your motivation to continue? Okay, so a pink cloud is this thing that when people get sober, they feel like they're literally riding like a pink cloud, right? Like they feel physically great, they feel emotionally great, they feel on and on and on. I didn't have a long-lived pink cloud, okay? Just get that clear. I just didn't. And I did something that I would never recommend to anybody. It's actually one of the things that we do not suggest in sobriety, and that is get into a relationship in your first year of sobriety. That first year of sobriety for me, I think really when I talk to people about it is like, it's a year to take for yourself, to get to know yourself. You don't really have anything to give to anybody anyway. I got out of treatment and I was in a relationship in less than a week, okay? And he was cute and he was fine and he still is. And, you know, and I thought he was going to solve my problems. I really do. And then we dated for like 2 months. And I got out of that relationship, and then a week later I got into another relationship. And then that one lasted about a month and a half, 2 months. And then after that, my sponsor said to me, are you ready to do it my way now? And he said, now, you're not going to date until I tell you that it's okay. So, you know, like I didn't have that pink cloud. I was looking for people to answer that for me, you know. If it wasn't going to be a drug and it wasn't going to be alcohol, it was going to be a relationship. It was going to be a man telling me that I was good enough, you know, which is, to me, I look back on that today, and there's so many of us out there that think that we need a partner to tell us that we're good enough, you know. And no, I don't play that game today. I love my husband very, very much. I'm very proud of our marriage. We've been to hell and back to make our marriage what it is today, right? But at the same time, I'm going to be just fine. I'm going to be just fine if something were to happen and we didn't make it. And you know, I didn't believe that for a long time. I believed I needed a partner in my life to make me whole. And that's really a huge part of my addiction that I never got for a long time, you know? And I don't say that like something's going to happen to us. We're in good terms today, and I love my husband, you know? But I don't need him today. I want him to be there. You know, I choose for him to be in my life, but I'm not like needing of somebody to validate who I am as a human being. I need to learn to do that for myself, you know? And that was a very valuable lesson I learned in early sobriety, because I felt like if I had a man telling me that I was okay and I was good enough, then I was, you know? And that just wasn't the case. So I don't know. I think it's hard, you know, like I was told in early sobriety, make a gratitude list. And if you recently watched my Peterisms channel, then you know we just did a book of 28 days of gratitude, Magic by Rhonda Byrne. I was told keep a gratitude list of everything that you'll lose if you go back out and use. And that was a lot of motivation for me. I just was scared. I was terrified, right? So my fear of being homeless, my fear of losing everything in my life, my fear of going to jail, all of that, my fear of dying, like, was enough to pick up. Like, I still have that fear in me today. Like, there is such a fear in me today that if I pick up, that I might go back out and use, that fear, like, I think, there have been moments in my 26 years, there have been several moments I have come close to drinking. There were 4 years that I never stepped inside a 12-step program. I had no emotional sobriety. I had no spiritual foundation, and I've talked a lot about it on my Peterisms channel. I was doing nothing, and I was going out to bars all the time, and I was involved in environments that were not healthy for me at the time, because they weren't doing anything positive for my life, you know? And those 4 years are really what got me back into the rooms of recovery and saved my life. I truly do not believe, had it been for those 4 years, if it hadn't been for that, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. I don't think I would be as involved as I'm extremely involved in a 12-step program. And I don't think, and all of my friends are involved in a 12-step program with the exception of 3 or 4. I don't think that would be what my life looked like today had I not stopped going and being active. And I didn't pick up, thank God, but I could have. And the thing is it was worse than if I had picked up. I had no emotional sobriety, and what that means was when you take the drug and the drink away, who am I inside? I was miserable. I was irritable, restless, and discontent. I was angry all the time. And it was the most miserable I've ever been in my life, even when I was using. And I was sober at that time, you know? So anyway, let's, I don't know what I was talking about, pink cloud or something, but anyway, let's see. Some of these questions I don't understand. Did you have to go cold turkey to get sober? I don't remember what they gave me in treatment. I think they gave me phenobarbital for my alcohol withdrawals, and I was in detox for 7 days. I had horrible detoxes. I can just remember, you guys. There's a scene in the movie when a man loves a woman and she's literally crying on the floor, and that was me. Like, it was horrendous. Like, I literally thought I was dying. But yeah, okay, so let's see. Okay. Oh, people are saying such nice things. Some of the questions are questions that I'm not going to answer because they're specific to 12-step programs. Oh my God, this is hard because a lot of these questions are, yeah. What was the hardest part of your recovery? The hardest part of my recovery, and maybe I'll end on this, and if you guys want me to do a second video tomorrow, I can, and I'll look at the questions ahead of time so I know what they are. I think the hardest part of my recovery was actually starting it. I had tried so many times before on my own. I had said tomorrow or a week from now or next week, you know, and I would say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I would like get all of this alcohol and drugs, and I would like almost, I mean, these were very dangerous nights for me. This is why I talk about, like, it's dangerous to try to detox yourself because you don't, I mean, you could throw you into seizures, it could throw you into DTs. Please seek medical professional if you're going to try to withdraw or detox yourself because it's extremely dangerous. You know, I would get all this stuff and I would sit at home by myself in my apartment. I'd say, okay, tomorrow's the day. And then I would drink mass quantities of alcohol and eat pills and stuff. And then the next day I would get up and I'd be like, I can't do it today. Like, I literally could not do it. I'd be like, I got to have something. And so there was never enough tomorrows, you know? And I've said that before about relating to weight because my food addiction is very similar to that. And, there just were never enough tomorrows. There weren't. Like, I was never going to do it. You know, so that's why I say, but for the grace of God, I think that like I ended up where I did, you know, because if it hadn't been for that night, had I driven home and made it home, I think that I would not be here right now. I think that I would have kept on using and I would be dead. I believe that so fully in my heart. So the hardest thing for me was ever like walking through the door. Had my dad not been smart enough to work, I mean, the addictionologist that I had when I went through treatment was a dear friend of his because they had worked together as doctors. And he told my dad, you know, don't do this, don't bring him anything. My dad wouldn't bring me anything. He wouldn't even bring me cigarettes. He said, I'm not bringing you anything habit forming. He brought me like a bag of clothes, and they were clothes that I hadn't worn in months. I was like, what are these ugly clothes? I mean, this is where I was when I got sober. Okay, day one, I was pissed, I was angry, I was like, screw this. And then, you know, when I got out, I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful for my life. Like, I literally couldn't even start talking without crying, you know? But it took me like 35, 34 days to get to that point, which is another reason why I believe in long-term treatment programs, and I also believe in halfway houses. And yes, I know that people use in halfway houses, and yes, I know that people use in treatment programs. I think had I gone to a halfway house, it would have made things so much easier for me. I would have been surrounded by people that were sober. There's a lot of really great recovery houses and sober living environments out there today, so many more than there were then. And that was the one thing that was recommended to me that I said, absolutely not, I refuse to do that. But there were so many nights alone, like I would go to meetings all day long and then I would come home and then I was by myself, you know, and I would call people and stuff, but it was very lonely. And I mean, it was really me and like reading books and watching movies and, you know, like that kept me sober and going to meetings. I went to meetings all the time. I mean, that was really what helped me, and I was around a lot of people that were sober. But it was lonely, and I think that was the hardest part, you know? I can remember, like, for my mom, when she got sober, like, her drinking always started at around 6 o'clock in the evening, and so she would make herself go to a meeting, because she'd say, I can't sit at home during this cocktail hour for me when I get things started. Well, for me, it was different, because I drank and used all day long. So for me, I had to be active. I mean, I had to get up, take a shower, get a cup of coffee, and find me a ride to a meeting, because I needed to get out of that house. I couldn't be with myself in my head, or I would have convinced myself. I mean, we talk about this phone in recovery that weighs 50 pounds because we're so afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody. I had to pick up the phone to call people. I tell this story a lot, so I'm going to tell it on here and I'll end this. But I had, you know, back then, now we give lists of numbers and names out to people, but back then people would hand me like business cards or like pieces of their checkbook, and they would write their phone number on it, and I'd have all these pieces, you know, like lined up together, and it would be like, let's say if it was like, it's 6:20 right now, so it'd be like 6:20, and I'd say if I can just make it to 6:30, I can pick up, I can use, and then I would have my dealers' names next to that, right? And I'd be like, I can just call one of them, or I can walk down to the liquor store if I can just make it to 6:30, and I would call those people in sobriety until I got a hold of somebody, and then I would talk to them, and at 6:30 I'd say if I could just make it to 7, if I can just make it to 7, I can use. It literally wasn't a day at a time, it wasn't an hour at a time, it was a minute at a time for me in early sobriety, and I was going to convince myself that I could use one way or another. And so that's why it's important for me to tell my story, because that's pretty hardcore, and I want you guys to know, if I can do it, you guys can do it too. Like I said at the beginning of this, we do recover, you know? We go on to have lives. We go on to have relationships. You know, we go on to get educations and have jobs beyond our wildest dreams. We go on to make families and have travel. And if not, we don't do all those things, then we're still here. We still have a fighting chance. And I want that for people out there. So anyway, I wanted to get on here today, and that was my way to celebrate my sobriety, was to get on here and send that message to you. And I don't even know what I've said now in the last 40 minutes or something that I've talked. So I'm going to get off here now, and I know it's a long video. If you guys want me to do a follow-up at some point, let me know. Put it in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.